And we're back. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Rollsicle. My name's Nathaniel. I'm the host here of the channel, and today we are talking about video game pricing, especially with the big GTA 6 price thing coming up. Although by the time you guys are seeing this, it might already be out. We will be making a video on it, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, I want to talk about some video game pricing. So let's do that. Before we jump into things, I will say, as always, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Any and all of it is greatly appreciated. We're on the road to 450 subscribers, and I believe we can do it with the help of you. All right. So what do I mean and / what do I want to talk about when it comes to video game pricing? So for those of you that don't know what variable pricing, which is what I'm going to be talking about and actually be supporting today, variable pricing or varying pricing or whatever you want to call it is the idea that there does not need to be like a standardized MSRP for AAA video games. So what I'm sure most of you know, right, if you are anybody in the gaming space, is that the standardized MSRP for AAA video games has now pretty much stabilized around $70. For a very long time, basically the entirety of me playing video games up until a few years ago, it had stabilized around $60. And this fights against the idea of variable pricing because most things don't need to think about what their game is going to cost if they're from a AAA studio, if they're a full budget game, essentially. Although I will argue that there is a big difference between some full budget games and other full budget games. So, but if they were anywhere in that ballpark, anywhere in that very large realm, they were going to charge $60 for the last many years. And then a few years ago going forward, they are now going to charge $70. And sure enough, we see this. Look at the landscape, the video game landscape recently, right? Forza, $70. Lego Batman, $70. What else has been coming out? James Bond, First Light, like 007, $70. Crimson Desert, I think that one was $70. That sounds right. And you know, you could list a whole lot of other games, right? So that's the idea of non-variable pricing. That's the idea of having a pretty standardized MSRP. And I think the best way to think of what variable pricing would look like with AAA games is to look at a section of video games that already does variable pricing or varying pricing, and that is indie games. It's the idea that each individual game should price itself individually according to what it believes its value is and the amount of copies it hopes to sell in order to be profitable, right? And I don't actually think that's a bad thing, okay? And I think that the indie space demonstrates why it is such a good thing, okay? Now, that does not mean that all games need to come out super cheap, and that's what I'm arguing for. I'm saying $70 is way too much. I don't think it is, actually. Okay, I will stand by the fact that as much as I hate $70 games sometimes, I also can sit here and absolutely acknowledge that video games is one of the places where your $70 is going to go the furthest. Okay, I I am not that far removed from college. I have seen people blow $170 on one night out. Okay, so I can fully get behind the idea that $70 for a full-fledged AAA experience is not necessarily too expensive. The reason that I am so supportive of variable pricing is because it allows publishers and game developers to make a variety of games and not feel like they have to meet a certain quota. And it also allows different games to fall into different categories of pricing without just feeling like we're either paying an upcharge or sometimes even maybe getting a discount, although that doesn't typically happen, but paying an upcharge for something that never needed to cost that much. So let me give you an example that I think would have really benefited from this. Everybody knew that when Skull and Bones came out, it was going to be a bad game, or at least I should say it was going to be a relatively mediocre game. Now, if you go and you watch reviews, you go and you watch people play this game, most people will say, I don't hate what's here, but it certainly is not the next Black Flag. It's not the next big Ubisoft game people actually like, and it certainly wasn't worth $70. And I think Ubisoft knew that, right? I think they knew that they were going to release the game for $70. They were going to get the stragglers that were willing to pay $70 for this game, buy it, probably regret it. And then what they were going to do is they were going to need to sell as many more copies to try to fix the damages and take as little bit of a hit as possible. So they're going to super sale this thing. And 5 months later, it's going to be down to $30, $20 And then they're going to get a whole lot of people that are willing to pick it up and go, look, it might not be a great game, but I am willing to pay $20 or $30 for it. Okay, fair. But the only reason that that game came out with a $70 price tag is because that is the standardized price for a AAA experience. And it would have been weird if it cost anything different. It would have been looked at as different. It would have been looked at as weird. I know that people can do this, but when you have such a standardized MSRP, it is going to be considered strange if you differ from that. Whereas when an indie game decides to price themselves however they decide to price themselves, it's expected. Now, people will obviously react if something is super expensive or super cheap. I think every single person known to man was shocked that Hollow Knight Silksong was only $20. Okay, fair. That's rightfully surprising, and I don't think most indie games are going to be able to pull that off. But I'm happy Team Cherry decided to, and I think it was a great marketing decision for their game specifically, because who wouldn't want to pick up that game for only $20? You know you're going to be getting your money's worth if you're even remotely interested in those style of games. So let's go back to our example of Skull and Bones now. Now, if variable pricing was something that was a little bit more accepted in the community, then Skull and Bones could have come out for something like $50. Maybe it comes out for $40. And while I am definitely somebody that would have benefited from that, like the speed at which it would go to such a steep sale, I think the game would have been viewed in a much more positive light as a smaller, more specific experience that wasn't asking for $70. And I think that that really is what the game was, right? Now, this is a game I haven't played, so I only have so much that I can actually say about it. But there are games that I have played, namely, I play a lot of indie games, right? That I go, this was not the best game ever, but I don't feel bad about it because it was only this much, or because I knew I was getting a smaller, more robust experience out of it. And I think that that is something that in the indie space, we're very used to thinking, hey, this is a small game made by a small team, so my expectations are in check. Oh, this is a big game made by a big team, so my expectations are this, and it's going to cost this. But big games and big teams can also produce, smaller experiences. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And here is a great example, okay? Correct me if I'm wrong, because I believe I was talking with Tyler, who you guys might have seen from time to time on the channel, sporadically. And we were disagreeing at the release price of Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales. If I'm not mistaken, I was of the belief that that game released at $50, or at least maybe the PlayStation 4 version did, something along those lines. There was a version of the game that I'm adamant released at $50. And while I have my opinions on that game, they knew it was a smaller experience than the original Marvel Spider-Man. They knew that it was a more unique niche experience, and so they did not charge a full $60 or $70 price game. Now, yes, there was like a version of the game that you could get the Spider-Man remaster with that was more expensive, but to be fair, you're getting the Spider-Man remaster. If you don't own Spider-Man, then that is 2 full games for the price of like 1 or maybe like 2. I don't know what the price of that bundle was. But that is besides the point. That's not the point I'm trying to make. I'm trying to make the point of specifically Miles Morales was a smaller spin-off game that the studio really wanted to make. It was a big budget, full game. It was a short one, but it was a full game made by a AAA studio that didn't cost $70, that didn't cost $60, unless I'm mistaken, right? If Santa Monica Studios wanted to make a spin-off, smaller, 12-hour adventure as Atreus, but they don't do that because they're like, well, if we don't make a 30-hour big budget experience that costs $70, how are we going to make this smaller experience and still be able to charge $70? Or are people going to accept it at $50? Yes, people should accept it at $50. And I think that we should promote variable pricing. Now, I want to be very clear. When I say variable pricing, I do not mean, because this is also a thing that kind of fits in that same category, changing the price of a specific product for each individual like buyer based on their previous purchase history, their, like, what's a good word for it? I don't even know. Basically like data-driven interest level. I am not pro that. I'm not pro my wife logging into PlayStation Store and having a game be $40, and me logging in who has bought the other games in that series, so that game is $60 because they believe I'll pay that much for it because I've bought the other games. I don't agree with that at all. But I absolutely agree with, hey guys, we want to make a smaller game. It's going to be a couple hours. It's going to be really, really fun. I know we normally make really big budget experiences. Here's a $30 game. Here's a $40 game. And no, we're not charging $70. And I think, like I've said, we see too many games. Now, I listed a bunch at $70, and I think most of them, if not all of them, though I haven't played them, are probably worth $70. First Light, Lego Batman, Forza, Crimson Desert. But we all know that there are other games coming out at the market MSRP $70 that we're like, yeah, I'll wait for it to be on sale, because we genuinely, in our heart of hearts, know that it's not worth $70. And I believe that there are games, Skull and Bones is a great example, but there are more, that know that they are not worth $70, but that is the market. That is what the MSRP is. That's what the accepted price is for brand new video games. And I don't think that's a good thing, right? Because the price should not be tied to the type of product. The price should be tied to the quality of the product. That is how the best markets work. And I will stand behind that, right? If everybody had to pay $20 for a burger, no matter the quality of the burger, because it was a burger, right? That would be the money per type of product. So whether I go to McDonald's or I go to Gordon Ramsay's restaurant, I pay $20 because it is a burger. Whereas quality is, yeah, you're going to get this pretty much slop from McDonald's that costs way too much, but I don't know what's a better, I guess Costco doesn't sell burger. Let's do hot dogs, right? Costco hot dogs cost what, like $2? $5? I don't remember. I don't ever get the Costco hot dog. I'm a chicken bake kind of guy, but I want to say the Costco hot dog is like $3, okay?
$1.50, it comes with a soda.
$1.50, and it comes with a soda. Look at that, okay? Now, again, if you pay per type of product, that means every single hot dog ever has to cost $1.50 or whatever the generalized type of product MSRP would be, versus when you pay for the quality of the product. Now, I would argue $1.50 is a very, very good price for the quality of the Costco hot dog. But if I wanted to go to a gourmet restaurant and they went, look, this is going to be the best hot dog you've ever eaten in your life, but it's going to cost $50, I am the one that determines whether or not that product is quality enough for me to pay that price. And I don't see why video games are any different. And yet we live and breathe and play in an environment, in a landscape where a lot of games charge the exact same price, though there are clear differences in quality, right? Nobody here is sitting here and saying Elden Ring, Baldur's Gate 3, and Clair Obscur are all on the exact same level as every other AAA game that came out, because we all know it's not the case, because we all voted them for Game of the Year, right? We all voted them for the Game of the Year. I guess Astro Bot as well. I haven't played most of those, actually. Working through Clair Obscur right now. Check it out on the channel. Okay. Everybody agreed that those games were Game of the Year. There was like no doubt that those games were going to win, right? And if those games came out and said, we are actually charging $70 or $80 because we believe that our game is worth that much money, it is their job to back that up with a quality product worth that price. And by everybody's metric, they did it, right? When The Witcher 4 comes out, when GTA 6's price gets announced and that game comes out, when Marvel Wolverines comes out, it is the product and the developer's job to make a product worthy of its price tag, but they can pick the price tag because maybe they know they made a product that's not quite $70 worth. Maybe they know they didn't make a product that's quite $80 worth, or maybe they know they did, right? This is an unpopular opinion, right? Hot take. I'll pay $100 for a GTA 6 that is actually worth $100. But y'all, we haven't seen a video game worth $100. You know what is worth $100 and nobody's ever batted an eye? Elden Ring plus its DLC. Because the game was $60 and the DLC, I believe, was $40 or $50. So when you add those two together, you paid $110, maybe $100, maybe 90 if you bought like the bundle or something like that, right? And nobody batted their eye because they absolutely thought it was worth that price. But if a game today came out, if GTA 6 had all of that content and more, all pushed into one with graphical quality better than we've ever seen before, and the ability to run at 60 frames per second, at least on, let's see, PlayStation 5 Pro and all that good stuff. If they really pulled that off, would that not be worth $100? I think it absolutely would be. And that's not me saying I want $100 video games. It's me saying I can understand that if a product is quality enough, I should be able and willing to pay the price for that quality product. And if a product is shit, they should be able to understand I'm not going to pay that much, and there should not be a set standard. Right? In the AAA environment, we can all agree whether it's 70 or 80 bucks, most games are coming out at the same price, yet most games completely vary in their quality and in how much you're getting for the money that you're spending, right? Absolutely. Now, sales exist. I think sales will always exist, but we're talking about games on release. I think we will see a lot more positive reviews of games. I think we'll also see a lot more varying sentiment about games, because right now, when you review a game, like a new AAA release, when you talk about a game, a new AAA release, you have a standard price tag that does not affect your score, right? You have a standard price tag that does not affect your score. But let's say Skull and Bones, let's be extremely hyperbolic here. Most people didn't like Skull and Bones. What if it cost $5? That would absolutely change your review of it, right? You'd have to be like, holy shit, this is a really cool experience for $5. I would suggest giving it a few hours, and if you enjoy it, then maybe put in some more. But you're not gonna feel bad for the money you put in. But obviously for $70, you would. Now, that's extremely hyperbolic. It's not going to be $5, and I'm not saying it should release for $5. But if that big of a difference obviously would change your review, I think there's an argument that you would change your review for $40 or $50, right? And here's the best example I can give, and then I'll end this video because I've made my points, okay? The best example I can give is Mario Kart World released and tried to claim it was an $80 game. Now, we don't have $80 games. We have $80 like versions of games. We have $80 for games and DLCs, but we don't really have $80 games. And most games post Mario Kart World that tried to be $80 kind of ran it back and were like, yeah, that's probably a bad idea. Now, Mario Kart World is not worth $80. And if you want, we have a review here on the channel. Go check it out. We'd love for you to do that, okay? And in that review, I back up this statement. Mario Kart World is not worth $80. I do not think it's a bad game. I think it's a really unique game. That doesn't make it good, but I think it's a really unique game. And you know what I do think it's worth? I think it's worth $50. Now, if you buy the Nintendo Switch 2 bundled with Mario Kart World, you get, assuming that you think about the Switch 2 costing the same amount, you get the game for $50 rather than $80. Now, yes, you could think of it as $30 off the Switch and you're paying for $80 for the game, but I like to think of the Switch being worth the price of the Switch, which we could argue it is or it isn't, but the game being $50, now that I can get behind. I think Mario Kart World is a quality, big enough product and game for $50. And so if that game came out for $50, I would have been singing its praises. Now, I haven't bought a lot of the new Nintendo games, but people say, Donkey Kong Bonanza, well worth the $70. Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, Switch 2 remake. Is it 70 or 80? I don't remember. Probably well worth the $70 or $80. But Mario Kart World is not. And that should have been a space where they recognized the quality of the game, released it at the price that the game is actually worth. Now, let's be honest, Nintendo's not going to release something for $50. Okay? But it's our job as consumers to be willing to not pay for things that are overpriced, right? That is how the market works. The market drives developers and people who release games and sell games to sell them at a fair price because they aren't being bought when they aren't at a fair price. If you buy them when they're at a fair price, if you buy them when they're not at a fair price, you are the problem. Okay? That's how the market works. It just is. All right? And there is not an issue with that. Now, you can sit here and be like, Nathaniel, Here, what are you talking about? We're going to start getting $120 games. We're going to start having to pay for, no, because you get the opportunity to vote with your wallet and everybody does. Okay. So yes, while it would absolutely suck if the next Spider-Man game, which I want to play pretty much more than anything, even though I did not like Spider-Man 2, I love the first one. It's my favorite game of all time. If it comes out that the base game's $120, I will not be pre-ordering that. We will see if it comes out and is worth $120. There's a 99.9% chance it ain't. And if it's not, I'm not going to pay that price. But I would like for that to be an option for them to learn how they should price their games and how other companies should price their games so that we can get Skull and Bones for $50, so that we can get Mario Kart World for $60, so that we can get GTA 6 maybe for $80, maybe for $100, but then we get a $100 quality video game. I don't think anybody here is complaining if video games all cost $100, but every single one of them is as quality as Elden Ring plus Shadow of the Erdtree combined. Don't think anyone's complaining about that, right? I don't think anyone's complaining if all video games cost $80, but they are all the quality of Baldur's Gate 3. People would complain that games cost $80 because most games coming out aren't worth $80. So let's start normalizing not charging a standardized amount. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Am I crazy? What do you think about this? Are games worth more? Are games worth less? Would you be open to this? I think it works great in the indie space. Do you think that would work as well for the AAA space? I don't know. Maybe you guys have opinions on that. Let us know down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that like button and subscribe button. We'd love for you guys to join the Rollsicle family. We love having you guys, and we are on that road to 450. So please, please, please hit that subscribe button. We'll see you guys in whatever comes next. Check out other things on the channel. But until then, may those rolls be ever in your favor. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Bye, y'all.